moving into our next presentation, my friends, and thank you, Emma, for the introduction for that one and playing that one for us. It's on YouTube for people that want to share it with other people. Yep, so it's just on YouTube if you've got some people that would like to watch that as well. Next presentation, my friends, is with Kylie Tune and Paul Spillane. Did I say it right? Yeah, great. From Cleaning Up Cape Arnhem. So a double act. Would you like a microphone each? You're going to share the lectern. Going to share the lectern? All right. A huge round of applause and welcome Kylie and Paul with Cleaning Up Cape Arnhem.
Amazing.
The green button.
Thank you very much. Ooh, wrong way. Thank you. Hello. How do I follow that? Wasn't that amazing? We had the privilege of having Lisa and Mike and the gang over for dinner the night before they went down to start untrashing Gilpin. And it was mildly entertaining because they were absolutely confident they could nail 14 kilometres, no problem at all. And of course, they were overwhelmed by the problem down there. It was amazing to be working with them, acknowledging the lands that we meet here today, Larrakia people, and of course the Yolngu people who can tell stories about marine debris arriving through their songlines through a long time ago. So this is not a new story that, listen to me sounding nervous. Rubbish, things have been landing on their beaches that don't belong there for a very, very long time, but this plastic story is a new one. So of course it's a once upon a time story. Once upon a time there was a guy called Blue. Does anyone know Blue? Anyone been to Nhulunbuy know Blue? He's quite a well-known fella, right? So he's lived in Nhulunbuy all of his life. Paul knew him from 30 years ago. He used to run ballroom dancing there. He's got several businesses. He's not your regular, rubbish warrior. And him and his wife went down to the beach and saw beaches that they were familiar with, saw unbelievable amounts of rubbish and scratched their head and wondered why someone wasn't doing something about it. And then he looked at Evelyn and their puppy dogs actually and went, actually, we can do something about it. And they cleaned Oyster Beach. And by the end of the day, the beach looked great. And so he put a Facebook post up at the same time that we were getting active. And I think that stop expecting everyone else to do something was a really, clear message that he put on the Facebook. And he threw out a challenge that everybody that goes down to the beach can make a difference. Stop in at Attenborough, get a strong bag, pick up some rubbish. Don't wait for someone else to do something. So, and at the same time, we'd just arrived in East Arnhem Land and it was March. My daughter came over from Darwin and this is us at Macassans Beach and there was no rubbish to pick up. There was a small Woolworths bag worth of rubbish and we just had a very relaxing day. And 3 weeks later, Paul and I went camping down there and that's Macassans Beach. And I picked up 6 garbage bags in 3 weeks. And I was like, hang on, what's happened? The winds had changed direction and the rubbish was coming onto the beach. So the rubbish comes down from Asia, hits North Queensland, north of Weipa. Then when the winds change, it swings around and comes across and hits the Cape Arnhem beaches and the Westall Islands. And so I spent a bit of time asking who was doing something and everyone said Attenborough are the ones, they're picking up the rubbish. So I met with Blue and Luke and we got a community cleanup organised. This was us, half of us at the end of the first day. We picked up more rubbish than that and there was twice as many people and we had a fabulous day and it showed us that there was, people in Nhulunbuy that can contribute and support Attenborough's work.
We're going to do a tag team. Yeah. We didn't introduce ourselves, and so we don't work in waste. So Kylie's a nurse midwife and researcher, and I'm an emergency specialist at the local hospital in Gove. And so this is absolutely just community driven. And so why did we take action? And I think the simple answer is because we could, and that was our motivation. And when you go to the beaches, and I don't know if any of you have been out to Cape Arnhem ever, But when you go to the beaches and they're advertised as a tourist attraction, and then you walk onto the beaches and you go, hang about, like, this is actually really spoiling your enjoyment of the beaches because the rubbish is so significant. And what we realised was that we had capacity in the local population. The Attenborough IPA has 70 kilometres of beaches, and one thing that wasn't mentioned in the Untrashing Julpin video is there's only about 10 or 12 ranges, and so that's a tiny number of people to work. And we're talking about it took a dozen Sea Shepherd people 2 weeks to do 2 kilometres of beach, and so you can understand the scale of the problem. But what we realised was, well, 10 people come with Sea Shepherd for 2 weeks from interstate, but we had over 3,000 people in Nhulunbuy, and it was a local population, a young population, and a population where, as we were saying, the number of four-wheel drives per household would absolutely keep Toyota happy. And so everyone has means of access to get down to these beaches, which is not something that the Yolngu population shares. And as Emma rightly pointed out, the Yolngu population have so many things that face them on a daily basis. And we had this population who really had the time and the resources to actually help with this. And we accessed these as recreational beaches. And so when you went to the beaches, this is what you saw, which is not different to what you saw in the video. And the other thing for us, I think, is, and for any of you that haven't looked at it, I'd highly recommend David Attenborough's film, which has come out this week. And what it says pretty clearly is that, the thing that is threatened is the human species. And so there's this global concept that we all know about. And you think, well, what can we do at a local level? But this bigger picture plays into your thinking as well. And so there's a map of the Cape. So quite a few long beaches, and that one of the beaches is a survey beach that Attenborough survey each year. So we wanted to leave that alone and look at working on some of the other beaches. And so we would advertise this map for people to get down there. Just flicking through a quick photo. So as I said, everyone's got a four-wheel drive so people can get down there. We wanted to make it as family friendly as possible, and we've been successful with that. So we get families coming down with kids, enjoying the day out. That's a way of people accessing the Cape. We've run corporate days as well. These guys famously were on the beach and looked out at their mates who are actually fishing on the water just off the beach and just going, oh my goodness, we should be out there fishing. And then we pointed out to them all the plastic with the holes out of it and said, well, that's what your fish are eating, mate. So you need to get this out of the water if you want to be enjoying your fish and have healthy fish to eat. And then they kicked back in and worked even harder. When family come across, that's Kylie's daughter, we drag them down to the beaches for cleanups. Even Kylie's dad, who's often a naysayer, was down there picking up rubbish as well. So it is really a community event. And as Luke said in the video, when you finish and you look back at the beaches and you can see there's a beach we've cleaned up, you can actually see how clean it looks after the effort, which is nice feedback. And we run these little competitions. So this is like an art competition for the children, and then they get sort of eco-friendly prizes for the best marine art that they create on the beach on the day. And this is the type of stuff you pick up. And what Luke was saying is it becomes very apparent that this is not just marine debris from the fishing industry. There's a lot of domestic waste. And so I'm just going to flick through these quickly. So lots of shoes, as I said, everything from high heels to baby shoes. There is marine debris, no doubt about that. This is certainly not marine debris, so this is absolutely domestic waste. Lots of water bottles, cleaning products. Kylie has a habit of looking at the brands and actually contacting the companies and sending them photos and saying your products are washing up on remote beaches, so just be aware of that. Toothbrushes are a big item. There's some safety issues, so squid jigs, which are pretty sharp and nasty. We sometimes find hypodermic needles, which are actually probably sterile, but still a safety hazard. This is a particularly unpleasant finding, so bottles full of urine. So people on boats clearly use these as temporary toilets and then just chuck them overboard. And so we have to empty that out. And sometimes we see things that are quite distressing for people. And so this is the type of thing we're trying to prevent. And once again, just highlighting the bite marks that Luke was talking about in the video. So one of the things that that they highlighted in the Sea Shepherd film is that even though we pick up all of this rubbish, that the microplastics are impossible for us to pick up, and so that's a remaining problem that we can't really deal with from our community efforts. Back to you, Kylie.
Yeah, normally we'd talk about COVID. We could probably talk about that for about 8 hours, really. Okay, what's next? Okay, so we had that first cleanup. Now we have our monthly ones. It's really good because there is people in town that don't have four-wheel drive. There's people in town that don't know how to four-wheel drive, and we get people bogged all the time. So, you know, we're down there to support them. Mark, Emma's husband, is very good at unbogging people. But we always push the point. It's refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's not about blaming Asia and their rubbish that goes into the ocean. And that sort of conversation does happen, and we shut that right down and bring it back to what we all can do, which is what the group's doing. Anyone here been to Garma? Yep. So I was absolutely delighted when my phone went, and it was Denise Bowden, and she said, "Oh, I'm the CEO of Yachty Indie Foundation. I don't know if you've heard of me," or Garma. I was like, yes. And she said, you know, what's this plastic story? So from Garma, for those that have been, you can look down and you can see the sand dunes of Cape Arnhem. And it was not a pleasant experience when I was at Garma listening to the heart-wrenching talks about Indigenous issues, to be looking over the cliffs down at the sand dunes, realising that they're covered with plastic. It's like, oh, this is not great. So we had 6 weeks to pull together an art installation and a stall that 3,500 people were going to be looking at, which was pretty amazing. But I think the coup was on that initial phone call with Denise. So I said, we're not coming unless you do something about the plastic usage at Garma. And so, you know, 3,500 people having 3 meals a day on a plastic plate, plastic knife, and fork and cup. And so Sodexo, the catering company, had to scramble and found biodiversity options, which they did, which was fantastic. That was a real coup. So Garma has the bungal at the end of the day, which is like a plenary, really, which is very popular, and it's a storytelling opportunity for the Yungal. And then, of course, at the other end of the Garma site, there's like a conference unfolding with your politicians and your CEOs of corporate organisations. And so we had, because our store was just next to the eating hall, we had Albanese and Paul can list off the Pat Dodson and all sorts of CEOs of Commonwealth Bank popping past and saying, what is this plastic story? Can you tell us that story? So that was a fantastic opportunity. 6 weeks to get ready for an art installation is not enough time. So we lost our back veranda and we put out calls to the Nullarbor community, and we had all sorts of art projects unfolding. We tried to convince the organisers of the festival, that Donna, who's pictured there, and I would be fine on a ladder to install the art, but they quickly got some scaffolding, which was quite good. In the end, we got the local Walkabout pub, got posters, and we put these in all of the toilets and where the coffee store was, so we raising awareness about plastic. We had this fantastic chandelier hanging from the entrance to the eating hall, made out of lighters, toothbrushes and thongs, which was great. And we had jellyfish, which had been crocheted, hanging right through the eating hall. So we've done lots of other awareness activities. We've spoken on ABC radio. Normally while I'm talking, I get a text from my mum. Is that you on the radio? Yeah, that's me. Spoken at school assemblies, which has been good, and there's a real interest in plastics in the schools now, I think. Local community markets, we've had stalls at the markets showing people what alternatives you can use to plastic. We've got a busy Facebook page and advocacy, so we've written to the local executives across different agencies to try and talk about plastic use and also the marine debris issue, and our wrote to the minister as well. So this is the local markets. We have we show alternatives. So we show that we can do soft plastic recycling in Nhulunbuy now through the Woolworths, and we show alternatives. So there's the pile of cutlery we've found on the beaches, and then alternatives that people can use. And of course, I think it's a real penny dropping moment when you're picking up plastic that's got the holes in it. Really alerts you to why this is so important. We're just a small group of volunteers, and we've set up systems to make these events sustainable and manageable for all of us. Identified champions, and luckily Emma's one of our champions, so that's just been fantastic. Luke's one of our champions. So we've been really lucky to have got a group of champions who can really support the cause. Yeah. And I put the elephant there because, like somebody said on the first day, there's only one way to eat an elephant. And if you think about the plastic problem in the oceans, it's absolutely overwhelming. So we just target the little bits that we can.
So where are we now? So September 2020. And I think when we look back on what we've achieved in essentially about 2 years, so our core business is picking up the rubbish, and we've picked up tons of rubbish off the beaches. We're absolutely focused on increasing community awareness, because I think it is about actually, as Kylie said, I mean, that it's easy to blame the rubbish that's coming down from Asia, but in their context, they don't have, municipal, waste collecting services like we're lucky enough to have in our countries. And so I think it is about raising the awareness at an individual community level where we live. We've got a large number of members of our Facebook page. We've held corporate events, as we said, in 2019 and 2020, which had over 100 people from various businesses around Nhulunbuy come to those events. We've been involved in the Great Northern cleanups in 2019 and 2020. And as Kylie said, we're involved in the local schools. So people like data. So here's a little bit of data that we've been able to collect. So we've had 408 people from the community participate in the cleanups. That totals up to about just under 2,000 hours of work hours. And we've picked up over 8 tonnes of rubbish off the beaches over the last 2 years. So that's a significant impact. And we've cleaned 13 kilometres of beaches. And so you get, from the Untrashing Julpin video, you get some idea of how labour intensive this is. I mean, it took 10 or 12 of the Sea Shepherd volunteers plus the Timaru Rangers, and they worked for 2 weeks, so 10 days of cleaning, and only cleaned just over 4 kilometres of beach. So it is very labour intensive, but we've done quite a bit by chipping away at it on a monthly basis. Just recently, we've accessed a land care grant, which was really exciting for us, because as a small organisation, it was nice to get some money to help us do what we wanted to do. And part of this is that we actually really want to raise awareness about the plastic cycle, and particularly with the Yolngu across northeast Arnhem land. That we've accessed, thank you Emma, some party packs for the township of Nhulunbuy. And so once again, just raising that awareness and opportunity for people, like if you're having a birthday party for your kids, rather than just going to Woolies and buying a whole bunch of plastic plates and whatever, that we're going to, and this is just happening as we speak, that we're going to have options with our branded stainless steel plates, bowls, cups and cutlery for people to use, and they can either use that and return washed or unwashed, and we'll deal with that. And as you can see, like our new signs, these are brand new, they've just come off the printing presses, and so we've got some, we've used some of this money to create these banners, and are intending to have static displays around the township of Nhulunbuy to raise awareness once again. So just highlighting, so this is the public information that we're developing for the coastal Yolngu community. So we're going to have 4 of these signs, 1 in each of the communities, so Milingimbi, Galiwinku, Gunyangara and Yirrkala. And we've just been in the process of actually meeting with the local authorities to discuss this. So this is the first draft of this, this signage. And we've had some feedback, so little bits of feedback like, too many words, like we need to downgrade the number of words. Clearly we'll interpret it into Yolngu Mata. There's been some feedback to say that we need to broaden the demographic on the island, like just having having white fella up there as well, because we throw rubbish in the ocean as well, and just some little things. And so like highlighting that part of the traditional diet is crustaceans and things like that. So shells and having that on the pictorial sort of representation of where the rubbish is going as well. And so we're getting feedback on that. And these signs, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Emma, but I think sort of 2.4 by 1.2 metres. So they're big signs, and we're going to erect them on places that are designated by the communities as to where they want them on the coast in their communities, to raise awareness about the fact that this plastic circulates and gets into the food cycle, and that affects the health of humans as well. There's just an example of our plate with the branding on it. And you can see our new sign up the back there, which has some information about the marine debris story on it. We also got a grant from the Nullarbor Corporation, and we've used some of that money to facilitate the cleanups on the beaches. So we've bought some safety equipment like two-way radios and a first aid kit, a barbecue, shade structure, water coolers, to actually make the event more family friendly, as we said. And that we found that in 2019, people would come. It was such hard work that we rarely got people back the second time, because it was just like people were going, I'm not doing that again. And we thought, how can we make this more attractive? And so putting on a barbecue and stopping in the middle of the day and having a bit of socialisation. And we're actually this year starting to get people coming back. So that's really, really effective.
He's doing a good job, isn't he? What next? Oh, look, we've got lots of ideas. Definitely going to continue doing what we're doing because it's working. You know, Timaru, 10 ranges, it's just an impossible task for them. So, and it's important for the community. It brings awareness. I mean, when you're picking up rubbish on the beaches, you go home, you've got plastic in your kitchens, it really brings it home. We've got a database of people that have registered, so putting out some newsletters. We're going to support the Nullarbor Corp moving their markets across to being plastic free, which is exciting. Really think that there's opportunities in the region for tourism. You know, tourism is the big buzz out in East Arnhem Land with the mines closing on the horizon. And there just has to be opportunity for ecotourism, like what the Sea Shepherd were doing, going down to amazing beaches like Ulpen, and having a Yungal encounter, you know, cultural encounter with the picking up rubbish as well. There has to be opportunities there. And we have to be targeting source reduction in whatever capacity we can, even though we're just little people from East Arnhem Land, because this is the thing. Removing plastic from the ocean is like emptying a bathtub with a spoon while the water's still running. It's impossible. You know, I was down there on the beaches with my son, and he said, Mum, why are you doing this? Like, every wave is bringing more plastic, but you have to do it, you know. But who can turn off the tap? And I think all of us can. I think it's, you know, it's us in East Arnhem Land. It's the things we're doing in Nullarbor. It's everyone in this room. It's LGANT not having plastic at this event. That all matters. And I think for me, when I look around our little region, I don't see that it's Timaru's responsibility. I see that it's everyone's responsibility. So it's tourism, it's the fishing industry, it's local government, it's NT government, you know, at every level, and individual community members working together. And it's not necessarily money that's needed, it's collaboration. Yep, quick one.
I think that's about it for us. So just a few people to thank. So as we said, Blue for really kickstarting the momentum and raising this issue. I mean, Luke in the Timaru Rangers, obviously, some other committee members there. So Anne-Marie Van Doorn, Emma, as we mentioned, Ryan Moroney, Kylie and I, and the people of Nullarbor that have come and helped us do these cleanups. Without them, it wouldn't be possible, obviously. A few people who help support us, so the Walkabout Hotel, Nullarbor Corporation, the East Arnhem Regional Council, and the Timaru Rangers and Landcare Australia. So just a list of a few people there. That's a nice little fishy just to finish up on that one of the kids made. And for any of you that haven't been there, so this is Lonely Beach, which is down near the homeland of Bawaka. And it, just by virtue of where it's geographically located, doesn't really get this marine debris on the beach. And so it's an example, just looking at that, of what a pristine beach can look like. And so that's what we're trying to achieve, obviously. And if you've ever been to Barwaka, or if you intend to go to Barwaka, you'll meet this young fella, or not so young fella, who's their pet crocodile, otherwise known as Nike, who's a 4.5 metre crocodile that they've raised from birth. Interestingly named as Nike by Kathy Freeman when she was visiting the homeland, and they didn't have a name for their pet crocodile, and she just looked at her shoes and said, "Why don't you call him Nike?" But the take-home message, and the take-home message, I think, of our community organisation is the Nike motto, which is just do it. And anyone in this room is capable of looking at something in their local community where you can just kick in and solve a problem. Now, whether that be weed management or anything else for the environment, doesn't have to be rubbish, but if you organise your local community, you can achieve quite significant things. Thank you.
Well done.
So, I don't know.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Kylie and Paul? Well, we've got them here after that awesome presentation. Look, if there's no questions. Oh, there we go.
Come on, Emma.
It means that you've done a good...
Come on.
No, here we go.
So thanks, Kylie and Paul, for taking the time to come all the way over here. That was a great presentation. What struck me was, and I know you said it's not a blame game, and I don't want it to go down that path, but throughout the past 3 days here, we've been talking about the waste which we are generating and how we're going to deal with it. But in your instance, I would imagine, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, a lot of the waste that you're dealing with probably hasn't been generated here. And I'm just wondering if you can comment on how local government, but what sort of things as a community can we do to help other countries with their issues? Because let's face it, a lot of us around the room here, we make use of Indonesia as a travel destination. We go over there for a couple of weeks and we have a great time and we spend our money there, and then we come home to our nice lifestyles. But I feel that, potentially we've got a level of responsibility to be helping out there, and it really shows that how globally we've actually really got to work together. I was wondering if you can make some comments on that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's a global issue, and I mean, if you look at plastics in the ocean, then it's a global issue that we have discussed locally with the rangers, and there is some level of interest amongst the Yolngu to actually travel to Indonesia to actually tell their story about how the rubbish they're generating is ending up on the beaches of the Yolngu. And I think that would be, because they do have a relationship with Indonesia and the Macassans that goes back many hundreds of years, and I think that would be a useful exercise. Aside from that, I mean, I think it really is just about advocacy. And
I think there's only a few big plastic producers, and I understand that they produce it in different ways for different countries. And I participated in an online conference, and like exactly the same shampoo in a bottle in Norway gets like money that goes towards for the sale of it, that goes to the government to help with the recycling of that container. But that doesn't happen for the poorer countries. So it's about targeting those big companies and trying to put a stop to that, because they're targeting poorer countries with the way that they're giving them plastic to make it harder for them to recycle. Yeah. Unfortunately, our rubbish goes into landfill, most of it. The nets, Luke bundles up, and there's a company that makes sunglasses that they get bundled off there. And we talk about what options there are for those micro businesses to do that plastic recycling locally. Look, there's pros and cons about that, but anything not going into landfill is something we should be looking at. Yeah.
Great. Any final questions? Yeah, of course.
So at the council that I used to work at down south, which was just predominantly waste management, they partnered with a waste company in Indonesia, and the Indonesian guys couldn't really come to Australia very often due to the cost. But one of our workers was a surfer and went to Indonesia quite often, and every time he went over there, he worked with this waste company to try and improve their practices, and they were kind of considering it like a mentoring type relationship. And I think there is scope for waste managers in Australia to partner with the waste industry in countries like Indonesia to try and reduce the problem.
Thank you.
Use all those sister city relationships and try and do those kind of things maybe. Can we have a round of applause for Kylie and Paul? I thought that was a great presentation.